podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us for the reaction pod straight after the game as Sunderland are defeated 3-0 in the final game of pre-season against Rayo Vallecano at the Stadium of Light. As you can probably tell, I am not recording this from a pub or a similar location. I did decide to watch this one from home when I realised that it wouldn't be the first team that were playing, but still we are here to chat all about what was happening in the game and what we can take from it. And I'm joined by Chris, who's been away for a week or so. And of course, we brought him back for one of these unbelievable performances from Sunderland. You all right, mate?
I am. It's good to be back. And, I say it's good to be back. You time it for one of these friendlies where I hate those. I hate these where the atmosphere's crap, the tempo's slow, it's a roasting hot day, the players don't want to pick up any injuries. It's just got a weird feeling about it, these sort of games, hasn't there?
Yes. And I suppose the amount of analysis, and we are guilty of this because we're doing a podcast straight after the game, you know. But the amount of analysis which goes into pre-season games, I guess, has been heightened by the fact that we can watch every single one of them. So you almost, and because you're gagging for the real thing to start, you do, you look forward to the games and you kind of analyse them as performances. And I'm all, people listening to this know what I'm like. I keep pointing out that just pre-season games, you've got to caveat everything you say with that. But you still, when you're watching the game, you want to watch Sunderland win, right? You don't want to see Sunderland get beat. So, of course, when I put the game on today, my goal was, well, lads, let's see what you've got. Put a bit of pressure on the team that played yesterday and give us a performance and stuff. But in reality, it doesn't particularly matter. I mean, we got beat 3-0 here. Played a very decent side, actually. I hadn't realised they finished 8th in the Liga. This was their last pre-season game, so they're kind of ramping things up. I think it might have been a different kind of game had we played the team that we put out yesterday, but still, it was ultimately a fitness exercise for a bunch of players who may well be needed to be called upon at various points during that West Ham game. I've got to be honest, I was hoping to see a little bit more, certainly from the more established players, the likes of Isidore, Roberts, Neil, Rigg, Lefay, who, if an injury crops up, they could well start that game next week. So you want to see them prove a point and try and get into the team for next week. But, ultimately, if you look at that defence which started the game, you had Harrison Jones, the under-21s captain, playing left-back, who's a centre mid by trade. You had Nectar Triantis, who isn't a first-choice centre-half and is actually a midfielder these days, but is playing there because we don't have any backup centre-halves. You had Thomas Lavery, who's a under-21s right-back, playing out of position at centre-half. And then you had Niall Huggins, who has been injured for basically 2 years. And that was a chuck-together defence against a decent La Liga side who were physically up for it. So it doesn't matter really what happened at the top end of the pitch. We were probably going to concede goals. And the reason we've just kind of launched straight into this, but I mean, some of the reaction I've seen and we talk about this all the time, social media is daft, but there are people who actually seem to be getting concerned about the result and the performance. And you can't, man, it's just so silly, isn't it? At the end of the day, if this wasn't televised and they didn't let fans in, it would just be a fitness exercise for a bunch of players who need to get minutes in case they need it next week. And that's it. Yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah. I mean, look, if it's not a huge friendly in terms of a testimonial or something like that, there is argument to have it behind closed doors. If you're the management, you're probably thinking, why do we need the crowd in? Why do we need a stream going out? And why do we need people criticising young lads, basically? We're trying to get fit for the start of the season and they're playing against a good Spanish side, as you said, finished in the top half of La Liga. And it even seemed, they made 8 changes at half time. You actually wonder if those conversations went on, if Sunderland actually told them and said, look, we're going to play a second string against you. And, you wonder if they were disappointed in having that as a final test before they go into it. But you assume these conversations go on about pre-seasons, and clubs know what type of team they're going to face in terms of, whether teams are going to play a complete second string, almost like we did, or if they're going to play a first choice 11, or what is going to be perceived to be the first choice 11. But I completely agree. I actually watched this with a bit of interest at the beginning, saw the team. I think all eyes were on it after the game 24 hours earlier. And I think a lot of us thought, well, how is he going to play this? How is he going to split it? Is it just going to be those second string players, which everyone presumed it would be? But there's the statement there that all of us presumed it was going to be second string. And you wonder, again, the conversations that have gone on behind the scenes, but we've all kind of, we've all been there, when, even you go back to school, when, teams were getting picked and things like that. And you get a feeling, if you're not quite there in that first team, or if you're in the second team or whatever, and all this, and kind of where your place is of how things happen. And because of that, I was thinking, right, okay, you've got Dan Neil, you've got Chris Rigg, obviously used to getting fit as well. You've got the likes of Patrick Roberts, who's fighting to play Premier League football. Isidore as well. He's seen strikers come in. He's seen Mayenda's reputation, go through the roof. He's looking to get games. And you're thinking, right, well, these players really need to show the manager something. He's watching on the sidelines. He's just had his, again, perceived starting 11 for that West Ham game the day before. And you're thinking, right, well, go on then. Show him something. What have you got? Really show him that you're sharp. Really show him that you're going into the season with a bit of form. And it's difficult. It's not easy. I'm not saying that these players, just rock up and start taking players on and start whacking it in the top corner and all this. It's really difficult when A, they're playing a good team, B, it's really hot day, and C, it's just, nobody wants to get injured, so the tempo's just really low. So it's difficult for players to make a mark in games like that. And you can't just produce something out of nothing, because you've got to have, in football, you've got to have 11 players up for it. If one player's up for it, he takes a couple of players on, there's no pass on. What can he show? It's got to be a show of those 11 players. They've got to play at the same tempo. They've got to speed it up when it needs to be. Players have got to make the right runs. But then, you saw Isidore thinking, I'm going to try and get him behind. We weren't looking for that ball. So he was just doing shuttles in their half for the afternoon. That's all he was doing. So it's really difficult in games like that. And I bet you some of those players were absolutely desperate to put their hand up and say, I should be considered for that first game of the season. And in a game like that, it's just really difficult to put your stamp on it.
It is. And the other thing as well, a lot of them more established names, I mean, I'm talking about, in particular, Patterson, Triantis, Rigg, Robertson, Isidore, they haven't actually, they've all had injuries during pre-season, so they haven't actually all completed a full pre-season program. I mean, Isidore hasn't been seen since we played Sevilla, I don't think. That was Rigg's first appearance, and it showed with that mistake he made for the first goal. He wasn't sharp, but you wouldn't expect him to be. Triantis has missed the last few, I think. Was that Patterson's first game, or did he play the?
Oh,
I think
it's his first one. I think it's his first one.
Yeah, possibly either that or he played one of the Shields or Gateshead games. I can't remember. But either way, what I'm saying is that a lot of them, the more established names, haven't actually had a full pre-season. Yeah. And when obviously I know you didn't watch the game yesterday. You've probably seen some of the highlights maybe, but one of the big things from yesterday's game was that the sharpness is picking up. Obviously these players have played together quite a bit. So you're seeing in every game the sharpness just get better in the tempo of the passing and all those things which you would expect to see as you ramp up towards the end of pre-season. You could see that getting better because they've actually played together. They've been getting the same amount of minutes and things. So your Talbys, your Dingres, Mayendas, them three have all played together pretty much all the pre-season. Before we signed Granit Xhaka, he got a full pre-season with Bayer Leverkusen, came here, he's had a couple of games, looked sharper. Sadiki and Diarra again have played all of pre-season, so you can see in the ones that clearly we're going into the season with for that West Ham game, you can see them getting sharper and fitter. Whereas with this team, it was like a mix of kids out of position, players who aren't going to play very much, and then lads who've been injured. So, the perform. I'm struggling to sit here and just we could sit with like any game and go, well, this happened wrong, and that, like I mentioned, Rig making that mistake for the first goal.
Yeah.
What's the point? The big talking point coming out of this is, what was the benefit of this game? What was the benefit of it? Because ultimately, we have to look at all these things. The benefit of this game was that all them players got minutes in their legs. Hopefully, none of them picked up injuries. For the likes, what we could have done, we could have, and I've seen a couple of suggestions of this on Twitter, people saying, well, why didn't we split the squad so that it was a mix? And I'm like, no, we play West Ham in a week. So whatever Lebris's preferred 11 is, had to play it together in one of these games. The other one was purely just to get minutes in the legs of some of the players.
Yeah.
So, you might be of the opinion that Lefebvre should start next week, and he might. But he got 90 minutes. So if he is starting next week, he'll play.
Yeah.
He'll be fit enough. He's got the minutes that he needed. God forbid, something happens with Mayenda or whatever. Isidore got minutes that he'll need.
Yeah.
That's all these are. They're fitness exercises. So
yeah.
Anybody sitting going, oh, this player's not going to be good enough. Our squad's not good enough. We've got nowhere near enough in depth for the Premier League. Look, it does not matter. They all got minutes that they needed. And by the way, we're going to sign more players. We know we are. We've got lads who got introduced on the pitch that weren't even involved today in Gu and Masuaku. We've signed 10 players this summer, so this isn't the team that will play West Ham. Don't worry about it. And I guarantee there are people who are sitting there going, but no, look, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We say it every pre-season. Me and Chris just said this before we came on air. We have these conversations every pre-season when we get beat. Same ones every year.
Yeah, exactly. We've said this year after year, even when we've played well, even when we've thought, and I've mentioned it before on the pod. I remember thinking Hamia might be the one in pre-season. Yeah. Look how that turned out. It's like, and it's true when the opposite happens, when there's not a great performance. And like I said, it's interesting that we're talking about these players in this way, though. At the same time, you take that back four out, as you mentioned about the young players or Huggins and trying to get fitness. Then you've got Dan Neil, Chris Rigg, Lefebvre, Brown, Roberts, Isidore, and you've got Patterson in goal. So that kind of the three in midfield, Neil, Rigg, and Lefebvre, and then Brown and Roberts, and then Isidore up front. I mean, those six players, if that would have been one of our starting 11s last season, no bother. Like Brown coming in for someone, maybe Neil, Rigg, Lefebvre, you'd think, that's really attacking move. I like that midfield in the Championship, and Patterson in goal. And look, we've only, was it 2 months or something like that? In 2 months or something, we've basically turned it around where that starting, six, if you like, that front six with the midfield and the strikers and the wide players, you'd be thinking now, they're in a second string pre-season friendly, and it's only 2 months later, and then you're looking at the side that played 24 hours earlier, and you're thinking, bloody hell, how much have we moved on in 2 months? And that's what we should be kind of looking at, just in terms of how we're splitting the squad, that those players are now maybe not considered to be starting players like they were last season, and that's how much we've come on. But in terms of criticising a pre-season friendly, I mean, again, even at an amateur level, that, if you've played amateur football, when the sun's blazing and you can't really be bothered, and you just want to get your legs running, and it's not really that fussed about who you're playing and all this. I mean, look, if we'd played, like I said, with our Championship team and a young defence and everything against the top half La Liga side last season, you'd be going, we'll probably get stuffed. And that's in a competitive game. So in a non-competitive game where basically, you're kind of going through the motions a little bit, you're thinking, well, their talent will show and we'll get stuffed, and, we'll just, Lebris's probably looking at patterns and who's like got looking sharp in terms of their first touch, and, who's looking fit. But he's not looking for a performance where we go out and win the game, 2 or 3-0 or anything like that. He's looking for completely different things, and him and they'll have a checklist of what they want to see from the game beforehand, and they'll tell the players, these are the things we want to see from you. And not once will they mention the result before the game. So, and it's just one of them. And yeah, I just think, looking at it, I just think it was quite interesting in kind of how they played and little patterns and things like that. But again, I just think the opposition were in a different mindset because they had some players who probably going to start in their first game of the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I look at some of the players who played. Neil did okay in patches. There was stuff I liked from Lafay. I was a bit disappointed that Isidore didn't touch the ball more. I think I counted it was the 28th minute before he touched it. But I think you're right what you said though, that his usual style of trying to like play off the shoulder and make those runs over the top. We weren't looking to make them passes, so it was difficult.
But you go back to last season in the Championship, and look again. I'm trying not to look into it too much. But how many times did we see that sort of performance from Isidore in the Championship?
Yeah.
I'm still not convinced he's a front man, especially a lone striker, because I don't know whether he makes the runs at the wrong time, but he doesn't, especially in the Premier League. And I'm more going off the Championship, but I just, in the pre-season friendly, to be honest, it was kind of representative of a lot of his performances in the Championship. He's not a Premier League striker. Now, I think he might be suited more to playing out wide and, getting balls out wide and getting them stuck in there rather than being that lone striker. Because he just doesn't get involved enough. You can't really carry anyone for that long who doesn't touch the ball in the Premier League, for me. And we talked about it. We talked about it on a pod a week or so ago when you're talking about the lone strikers or partnerships and this kind of evolution of the striker role where they're not just the striker, they get involved in multiple different aspects of the game other than playing off the last man and all of that. And Isidore just seems to be that one, all right, I'm on the last man, that's all I'm going to do, and I'm going to keep making runs. And I think Labry's going to want more from his front men next season.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, that's a more general point about Isidore's game, isn't it, rather than this particular pre-season friendly. But he showed things in that. Yeah, I know what you mean. He showed things
for half an hour. But how many times did we say that in the Championship?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I get that. And you compare him to Mayenda, and Mayenda likes to get involved, doesn't he? He likes to drop in and do so. And by all accounts, that's what Mark Hughes like. And to be honest, I think we're going to sign another striker. I mean, I've heard rumblings of other forwards who were in for more experienced Premier League savvy strikers. I think that's the only thing really missing from that roster is somebody who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt, and does a bit of everything. Because when you think about it, a lot of the intent from Sunderland, even last season, and you can see it now in pre-season stuff, a lot of it comes from the wide players, comes from the midfield. It's not like the old days where you used to lump it up to the big man and you knock it down for the little man. Them days are gone. So, your centre forward, almost, you're not looking for your centre forward to score your 25 goals a season, because I think football's changed. We talk about this loads. The old fashioned centre forward's kind of dying off, isn't it? It's changing the game. You're almost playing like an attacking three behind a striker with another attacking midfielder in front of them. That's how it kind of feels.
That's it. You build those. Let's say in the old days, you'd have your striker scoring aiming for 30 goals a season. You now build those 30 goals within 3 or 4 players across the season, rather than one player scoring those goals. And you can see we're building those wide players and those midfielders who can get forward, who can get you 6, 7, 8 goals. And if they can all chip in like that, there's your strike. There's your 30 goals a season striker, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, you look at people like Roberts. Roberts is going to be desperate to play in the Premier League, and this is that when you're watching the game, you're thinking, right, go on then, kind of get the ball and just show what you can do a little bit. And it all looked a bit, and again, it's really difficult. We're not going to go off the pre-season thing, but again, when I'm drawing parallels from Isidore last season, you draw parallels with Roberts. and he looked similar to the types of things he was doing last season as well.
I'd like to see him with some of them better players, though. I said this on a pod the other day. I would like to see, Robertson pre-season. I don't think he's been on the pitch with, the players we've. I would just like to see him with, Xhaka, Diarra, Siddiqui, Talbi, Adingra, like just because we've seen what he can do when he's on the same wavelength as an Ahmad. And look, we will see that. Like Patrick Roberts will play plenty of football this season. He might not start every game, but we're going to see him with them players. I would just like to have seen him in. I felt a little bit sorry for him just in that he's kind of every time he's played with the B squad, or he's came on like when it's time to make subs. He's not really had like a 2 or 3 games in pre-season where we can go, oh well, actually he linked up really well with Adingra. He linked up really well with Xhaka. We haven't had that in pre-season, but look, we're going to see that as the season progresses. He'll get a chance.
Yeah, and the other one I felt sorry for was Triantis.
Yes,
I really wanted to see him in midfield.
You've been a big advocate of his over the summer. I mean, you really wanted to see him get an opportunity.
I don't, like I said, I don't think he's kind of, we can just hang our hat on him and see he's Premier League.
He's not going to get one now, is he? He's going to
no. Well, this is, but I think he's been a bit of a casualty of how we've been defensively in terms of setting up that back four and having cover for the back four. Purely, he's had to slot in the centre. But I would, because actually he played, I think it was the first half, after about half an hour, he played a cracking ball over the top, and he seemed to be one of the people who was really positive and like looking forward when he was in possession of the ball. But I just would have liked to have seen him a couple of times in midfield. But yeah, I mean, the other thing I wanted to ask you about actually was Chris Rigg, and I know he's finding his feet and he's getting fitness but if you're Chris Rigg, with looking at these signings this season, would you potentially be at his age as well and need for games? Would you potentially be thinking, actually, there's a chance that I would get more games if I had a year out on loan somewhere?
Oh, well, I think definitely, but the experience for an 18-year-old kid to be in Premier League matchday squads every week, getting the odd minutes here and there and playing when he can, is probably going to be more valuable to him long term. I know what you're saying. I think we've seen Chris Rigg just basically have a full season there. I think he will get the odd game here and there. He's not going to play as much as he did last year, but you've got to think as well, he is several years ahead of a lot of his, even for England, his teammates playing for England and stuff. I would imagine he's, in terms of his actual exposure to first team games and stuff, he's years ahead of some of the others. So yes and no. I think the club, in terms of him as a project and as an academy player, they'll want him involved on it's not just about the matchday squads and playing Premier League football though. Like training every day with players we've like a world class. Granit Xhaka is world class. He gets to train with him every day and learn from him. He gets to learn from some of these other players every day. I think if we could maybe have this conversation in a year's time, if we stay up and Riggs barely played and showing flashes of his ability here and there, maybe then, or maybe even in January, I think right now you've got to keep it around. The other thing with Rigg, by the way, and I've already mentioned it, that was his first minutes of pre-season.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I'd want him to stick around and hopefully he gets, let's say he gets 15 to 20 games, and that includes coming off from the bench as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what you'd be hoping. But if you're him and you look at the Bellinghams and how they plan things out, and you'd be thinking, what is he going to get the most benefit from? Is it, let's say, 10, 15, 20 games where most of them are from the bench? Or is it going out on loan and playing 40 games next season? And it doesn't harm. I hope he stays. I hope he stays with us, and that he's an option for us, because I think he can come on and have a flash of brilliance and change a game for us. But on a purely personal development point of view, he's, there's probably, kind of within the club, they're probably thinking, what are we going to get the most out of Chris Rigg in the next season, or for the next, let's say, even looking at 5 years? Are we going to get the most out of him by giving him 10, 15 games this season, or he has a full season elsewhere?
Depends where he would go, but maybe they're conversations that they're having. I suspect they'll want him to just be around a Premier League squad At least till January. If we get to January and he's like, look, you haven't even been bringing us on in games. I want to play. Can I go? Yeah. Can I go? And then he would have the pick of the best championship teams who would take him. You can guarantee it. And then maybe, you can, depending on how the season's going, what our needs are, whether we need to bring in more players, all them sort of things. But right now, I think he's got to stick around. I want to bring up as well, if we are going to take anything from performances and things, and you didn't see yesterday's game, but I thought Tutierov in both games when he came on has done all right. I thought he looked canny. He definitely should have had a penalty, by the way. Jared Gillett, absolutely useless for that decision. He was the centre half who looked a bit like David Luiz was all over him. You could see him ragging his shirt off his back. He definitely got brought down, and the referee wasn't having any of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's definitely going to be one that they'll be looking for a loan move away. But I think looking at the amount he's been involved, you can see that he's highly rated. You can see that they like him, and for someone to make an impression like that, to come on in a game like that and really kind of step it up and not just come on and join in with I'm going to pass it 5 yards because everyone else can't be kind of bothered with it. He kind of took players on, and I tell you what, he looks quick.
He does.
A couple of times he had 5-10 yards to gain on someone, and he looked quick every single time. But yeah, he does look good. And another one that kind of bodes well for the future. But again, I think they'll be targeting him to have a season loan away, I would guess.
Yeah, well, he had an option, didn't he, whether he wanted to stay or not? And the club gave him a decent extension to his contract because he was out of contract. So you would imagine as part of that, there was some sort of development plan, what we're going to do with you and stuff. And again, for any young player who has been given minutes in pre-season, if you can, I'm not saying our opinion's worth anything but he's got us talking, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's got us talking. I'm sitting here going, Tutierov did really well. I'm not saying he looked like somebody who could play in the first team. I don't think he's that, but I just like the fact that he got a handful of minutes in both games, came on, was busy, to be honest, he put his about more than Nisidor did. Fair play.
I was just about to say, if nothing else, he's shown to the management and to everybody who was watching that his attitude is absolutely spot on, and he wants it. And that's kind of half the battle with a young player, isn't it?
Yeah, same goes for Jones, I guess. Harrison Jones, who's basically played a lot more than we probably thought he would have, because he's had to play at left back and stuff, which isn't his position. He doesn't look like a left back, but he's worked hard and he's dug in, and I actually thought he did okay today. I thought he played poor last weekend when he played there, but you would expect him to. He's a young kid and he's playing out of position. Did all right today, he did all right. So, fair play to him. He's another one who, the management, the coaches will be coming away from this and going, like Harrison, very professional, put a lot of effort in, listened, probably spent a lot of time with the coaches working out this new position and stuff. And the feedback will be good to him. And then when teams are coming in to sign him on loan, they'll be going, well, he's adaptable, he's this, he's that, he's the other. And he's had a lot of minutes in pre-season. So if he does get an offer, which I'm presuming he probably has, and the club are holding some of these lads back until our squad shapes up and we're able to free some of them up. That's the big reason why a lot of these lads haven't got anywhere, I believe. But it'll be one where, teams will come in from him and they'll want him, and he's had loads of minutes and he'll be ready to play. He's actually one of the young'uns who's got a lot of minutes into his legs, to the point where if he did get a loan somewhere, he could start in League One next weekend or the weekend after. Do you know what I mean? So fair play to him too.
Yeah, no, he's looked good, and he's looked good in a sense that you say he struggled the other day, but the conversations, I would guess, that happened before he said, look, with looking at the kind of fullback kind of situation we've had, where we've brought players in, but we needed someone to play left back rather than move Hume around or however that was going to work. But yeah, I think the conversations would have been, look, we're not looking at you, how your performances are as a left back. Just concentrate on, having a good first touch, playing the right pass, making the right decisions, and playing, as you said, Gav, there's been a few games where he's played with better players. He's not played with the young lads. He's been playing with good players ahead of him. He's been, good players inside him. So he's learning his trade in terms of just receiving a pass, playing 1-2s, the calls, all of that sort of stuff goes into it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That's what he's shown. He's shown that he can mix it and he can keep possession of the football, or he can mix it, or he can, he can win the duels in the air and all that sort of stuff. So that's what he's been given minutes for. Doesn't really matter where he played. He'll just be glad that he's been on the pitch with some of these players. And like you said, set up for what is likely going to be a year out on loan, because I think he is highly rated. Looking, I think that there was he played well in the cup. I think in the cup game, everyone was talking about him at the time, saying he was kind of on the verge. He was on the bench a lot, so he's highly rated, and it's one of them. He'll go out and he'll get some games, and we'll see how he does.
Yeah, well, we've done a good job of not actually talking about the game there, which is fantastic considering we've been recording for 30 minutes.
We couldn't really talk about it after our intro of saying how much it doesn't matter.
Nah. Well, look, when we've like the pod I did yesterday, me and Johnny, even then, although we won the game, we weren't like going in depth on the performance. You can't, man. I just want to readdress this before we leave. There will be people who watch that who will be like, I've seen it. I've seen people like kind of that, not necessarily, I wouldn't say they're angry or losing their minds or anything. I just think like the reaction to losing a game, whether it's a friendly that doesn't matter or a real game, is always the same from certain sections of the fan base. And it's just, you've got to apply logic, man. Come on. It means nout. It's a fitness exercise that we passed because everyone got through it. Everybody got minutes into their legs. Next weekend, we play West Ham United in the Premier League with a full stadium of light there. And in this game, we played a patched up second string in front of about 4,000 fans because nobody turned up because nobody gives a shit because they knew it was a pointless game and they knew they weren't going to see the likes of Shaka and whoever else they want to see. So people didn't turn up. I didn't turn up. I went last weekend. I didn't go to this one. I was like, what's the point? I just watch it in the house. That makes us a shit fan and whatever. I don't really care, but it's a friendly, innit? I'm not really bothered too much about the performance itself. The real thing comes next week. So, get over it. And if you are pissed off, because just remind yourself that you're going to have a pinch yourself moment next week when you're at the stadium, like, you're watching from home. You're going to be like, fucking hell, Sunderland are back in the Premier League. This is finally happening. We're here. That goal Tommy Watson scored at Wembley. And talk about sliding doors moments, by the way. Sheffield United absolutely battered at home 4-1 in the first game of the Championship on Saturday off Bristol City. That, one kick of the ball could have been totally different. We could have been playing in the Championship this weekend. Instead, you're watching a second string friendly. You know what I mean? So just remind yourself that it's nothing in comparison to what's coming. And the Premier League is a whole different kettle of fish. And that's why we've spent hundreds of millions on players to get ready for it. So, let's focus.
Well, you said before we started recording, Gav, I think you had a look, didn't you, when we broke all records going up under Peter Reid, and that pre-season before we got hammered off Chelsea on the first opening day of the season, we won 2 out of 7 games in that pre-season. And
a monkey pre-season, and then the year after the same.
And then we'll finish 7th in the Premier League. And actually, I was looking at Terry Butcher's pre-season that he had, and the one that included the car crash of the new signings. He won 3 out of 4 friendlies. We only got beat off Rangers, and then we won the other 3, and one of them was against Borough, the last one before we got hammered off Derby. So it means that we've seen pre-seasons where we've won kind of loads of games and we've got really excited about, and the season's been crap, and we've vice versa, where we've lost every single game. And
do you remember the Di Canio one, by the way, where we barely played anyone, but we beat Tottenham and beat Midtjylland or something, and everyone was buzzing because we'd signed 14 players and like, fuck now, what a pre-season, we look fit, we look strong, then got beat 1-0 off Fulham on the first game of the season.
Was that the one? Which one did we win a tournament in South Korea?
We got to the final. We got
the final.
So basically, Di Canio decided we didn't need to play anyone. We just had to run loads. So we played his mates in Italy, literally his mates in a friendly on a Astro pitch, I think, and then went over to Hong Kong and played Tottenham and looked like we'd been training for 3 weeks before they had. We looked really fit and we beat them 3-1, and it could have been more. Then the final against Man City was on like a farmer's field because the pitch was horrendous. And then we went, they kind of chucked in a friendly last minute in Denmark and we won that one. And everyone was like, fucking hell, we're going to be bang up for it this season. Like, look at all these new players we've got. We look mint in pre-season, the games we have played. And we were miles off it by the time the real thing happened because we hadn't played enough games of actual football. And then Di Canio was sacked by September.
And everyone thought Cabral was brilliant after those games.
Exactly.
But,
yes.
But it's interesting you talk about, you just mentioned that, just to go off tangent, because you mentioned Sheffield United. But, that even though we've spent all this money, we do have to be careful. We have to be careful because of the sheer chasm that we have to overcome. And you've got to remember, you're talking about there, Tommy Watson's goal. Like there was an element of luck about how we went up in terms of 2 last-minute goals. Who knows, if those weren't scored, how would it have all played out? If it gone to penalties, it's a toss of a coin. And you look that we weren't world beaters in that championship. So the first thing we had to do was spend money to get up, a lot of money, to get up to Burnley and Leeds' level, where they were, because we were way off them. Like they were way ahead of us last season and we couldn't keep up with them at all. And there was games where we struggled in the championship. So at first we had to spend money to get up to their level, which means now once you spend that chunk of money, then you're almost saying, right, well, we've got half a chance in that bottom 3 not to finish bottom of that. And then you've got to try and close the gap on whoever's going to finish in the bottom half of the Premier League, which isn't going to be Spurs or Man United this season. So then you've got teams who have got, that they've been given more money because they had higher places, because they finished above Spurs and Man United. Look, you can look at summers of other clubs and you can say, right, well, likes of Everton might not have had the best summer. Brentford obviously haven't had the best summer. Wolves, questionable. So there's all these clubs you can say might not have had a great summer. But you can't forget about the starting point that they were working from. So we had to try and close that gap. Now, I think that the money we've spent gives us half a chance. But we can't start getting carried away and thinking that the money we've spent is, the money we've spent means we're like top half or mid-table or comfortable this season. It's going to be one of them seasons where we celebrate 3 points like a cup final win. And it needs to be like that. We need to get behind the club like that, where we celebrate all the points that we're getting and not go into the West Ham game thinking, well, we've spent 100 million, so we should be beating the likes of West Ham. It's not going to work like that. And we've got to forget we can't forget where we come from in terms of how we got promoted. And that you say sliding doors moment. I mean, we were potentially very close to having a weekend like Sheffield United had, and like you go back to the championship and you have to pick yourself up again. When we weren't that far off being Sheffield United in their position. So we've got to, and the club and the best thing about what's happening is, yes, we're doing our best to close that gap. But from our point of view, we can turn around and at any point say, well, we know the club are giving it a go. We're not going to just let the opportunity slide. And, that we got up by hook or by crook, scored those last minute goals, got there, did the hard work. But the club look like they do not want to let this opportunity slide. But the money was spent, it's no guarantees.
No. Well, mate, we've done very well to do 39 minutes of podcasting. I was about to stop at half an hour, but, we just kept on going there, And people will be thinking, how the fuck have they done that?
Well, of course, and it wasn't, then the transfer was confirmed today, even though everyone knew, but we had confirmation, didn't we?
About Arthur Masuaku?
Yeah.
Yes. So that one's done as well, but we've, I'm glad he's here, We chatted about him the other day on the pod, solid backup, but that's what you need when we're talking about all these things that we need to do just to get up the standard to compete. Bringing in players with Premier League experience all over the pitch, and he didn't even play today. The only thing I feel a little bit sorry for the fans who paid the £20 to go. I do feel sorry because the club kind of hinted Mark Yu would be playing, and he wasn't. he was shown on the pitch before the game with Masuaku, like, you know, he has when he was signing. But I think they gave the impression that if people went, they would get to see Mark Gue play, and he wasn't even on the bench. I wasn't expecting him to be honest. He hasn't had a pre-season, really. But, you know.
Just to mention that, though, bit of a stinker charging 20 quid for it. I mean, you know, Ben's for £1 or something like that. You know, it should have been, one of them to get. You could have gotten like 20,000 in, and all might have bought a pie or, you know, loads of pints and that. And you make your money that way, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, you let the kids in for free, even, you know, something stupid like that. It's, you know, it just seems a bit weird.
I wonder if they're thinking, because obviously on a deep level, the club know analytically, like, which fans are going to pay to come to every game, including pointless pre-season games, and they just look at it and go, look, there's going to at least be 5,000 or 6,000 hardcore here who will literally watch us play against the Dog and Duck in the Northern League. Just charge them 20 quid. And that sounds pretty cynical, but I don't know whether they think about it like that or not. But, you know, 20 quid and getting 5,000 in is better than 20,000 and letting everyone in for £1, isn't it?
Well, it depends. Depends what you're looking for. Are you looking for that bit extra money, or are you looking for a bit of PR? But then again, you got, if you get those extra people in, like I said, they spend a few quid, don't they? You know, the bands want some chips or something like that, or people want to try out the new pint system or something like that, or, you know, whatever it is. But I don't know. But I don't know. Just seems 20 quid for that. It seems a bit steep. But yeah, on that signing, yeah, it's, again, I haven't talked about it yet, but yeah, free agent, and just seems like we're getting a bit of experienced, and potentially, I mean, you know, we might end up even on a situation where we want to be solid down the wings or something like that, and we might even have Ronaldo and the new lad kind of covering each other on the left hand side, just saying, well, because they're both good at going forward, so they might. Right, well, we'll have kind of two slightly defensive players who on that side, just to double up on someone. You know, we'll play the big boys. Let's double up on that side, and we'll play two defensive players who can also get forward and do a bit of damage there. So you just never know how Labry's going to play it, and or even if he wants to switch to wing backs or something like that, and you can just imagine him covering all bases, can you?
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to see him for a while, anyways. I think by all accounts. He hasn't had a club since the end of May, so, you know, you've been doing training and fitness work, but still not the same as being in a club, is it? So might be a little while till we see King Arthur, as he was dubbed by the West Ham faithful when he was there for 7 years. But, you know, can he sign in on a free? Like I say, I'm not going to. I don't know really what to say about it. Really, it's just a signing, isn't it? Someone who will fill a hole in the squad and gives us experience, and if we need him, he's there, you know.
But you don't know how to react because it's not a 20-30 million player. Was had a player with loads of experience, played for Besiktas like last season, and, you know, 7 years experience in the Premier League, and it's almost like we're like, you know, he's not.
It's I'll take that, right? What's who's signing next? Yeah.
Get him on the books, get him fit.
Aye, well, let's go. I've tried to leave 3 times. Chris keeps pulling. As you can tell, he's been away a week. He's got loads to say, hasn't he?
Been building it up for a week.
That's it. He's getting it all off your chest, mate. We are back with On This Week tomorrow on the pod feed. So On This Week, if you don't know, is our weekly look into the history books. You weren't on that one, Chris, of course, because you're on your holly bobs. But Martin and Andrew and Calvin were, and they're a must listen if you haven't already caught an episode of that. Make sure you do. Any news which drops this week, we will be sure to react to it. I mean, that build to the West Ham game is going to be epic, and we'll be back with a pod every single day as we gear up to that first game of the season in the Premier League. But yeah, we will be going nowhere. Daily pods from How We Are the Podcast. So if you're new to us, get subscribed. I'm amazed you've lasted 40 odd minutes if you are new to us, by the way. Talking about a 3-0 defeat to Rayo Vallecano in pre-season. But yes, if you are new to us, get subscribed. Give us a rating on whatever pod app you're on. They always come in handy. It's nice to see so many comments as well on things like Spotify. On Spotify, you do have the ability to drop a comment in there and give us your feedback on an episode or anything you want to say about something we've said on a show. To all our fans on Ready to Go, hello. After I got slated for something I said about Enzo Olafay after the game yesterday, I was like, nobody noticed I was joking a little bit, like. So yes, hello to everybody listening on Ready to Go. It's nice to know that you all listen. And thank you very much to the listeners for joining us. Like I say, we'll be back with a pod every single day this week. Goodbye to Chris. Thanks you very much, mate, and welcome back as well.
Good to be
an
back,
epic,
mate.
an epic for such a pointless game.
I know. I just knew as the game was going on, I thought, oh, brilliant. This is, great one to come back. But no, good back, mate.
I think I'm going to title this one, Here's Why Pre-Season Friendly Results Don't Matter, by Gav and Chris. Yeah. Anyways, thank you very much, listeners. I will actually let you go now. I'll see you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.